Greetings everyone, my name is Zeus Shivmangal and I'm a member of Group 2 and we will be presenting on the social variable gender. Men and women express themselves in accordance to norms that teach and differentiate gender role. Stay with us as we explore how gender affects language.
My name is Shani Salkar and I will be explaining the social variable gender. What is social variable? Well, social variable is a social factor that influences language variation. What is gender? Gender is either of the two sexes, male or female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones. Gender also refers to the characteristics of women, men, girls, and boys that are socially constructed. This includes norms, behavior, and roles associated with being a man, woman, boy, or girl, as well as relationships with each other. So, why do we consider gender to be a social variable? Well, language varies according to characteristics of the speakers, being the males and the females. Gender causes language variation because males and females play different roles in society. Thus, there are differences in how they speak. This difference may come naturally or may be influenced by how society views the different genders. So here we have an example of a woman going to a wishing well. And here she wishes for intelligence, logic, and driving skills. So let's take for instance the wishing well is society. The woman is wishing for intelligence, logic, and driving skills. Based on what she wished for, society automatically views it as traits only a man possesses. So therefore, in order to fulfill her wish, it turns her into a man.
I am Marilisa Shamla and I'll be doing how does gender influence language variation. When you look around, you might notice that for the most part, masculinity and femininity are represented in a number of different ways. From the way people dress to how they wear their hair. And all of these choices are sending a message about their own relationship to the social construct of gender, or how a person identifies themselves in a relation to categories of a man and woman. Gender is so tied to how we express ourselves that it can even impact the words we use every day. How does gender influence language variation? Does having different genders affect the way we use language? Or is it just society that prompts the difference? From this, many studies were conducted, and as such a dominance and difference theory came into play. Please note that these are not the only two theories of language variation, but in this presentation we will only be looking at the dominance theory and the difference theory. On this slide here, we have the theories of language variation. First, we will be looking at the dominance theory. Men have traditionally had more power in society, and women have been used to being subservient. This causes language differences between the genders. The difference theory. There are differences between the genders' speech, but neither is better. Men and women use language for different purposes. Men compete and women cooperate. Let's look at the difference theory. Difference indicate that because of the various lifestyles, men and women are exposed to different situations, and as such, use language for different outcomes. Women have a wide range of emotional vocabulary, using language to describe their feelings and emotions, while men tend to use language more assertively and are more likely to hold back their emotions. So here we can see that when women use language, they're being more emotional, and when men are using their language, they don't be emotional, they hold it back. They're like more rational. Here we have a picture of how does gender influence language variation. Now in this picture, we can see that there is a man and there is a woman. And above the man, it has the word rational. And above the woman, it has the word emotional. This basically explains the difference in their languages, right? The men are more rational, which means they're more reasonable, they're more logical in their language, and women are more emotional. And we all know what emotional means. Here on this other slide, we have some women's traits and some men traits. Now, these are basically like how women are and how men are when it comes to language. Now, under women's traits, it have words such as affectionate, appreciative, emotional, friendly, sympathetic, mild, pleasant, sensitive, and so on. Those are how women are. Now, under men's traits, it have dominant, achievement oriented, active, ambitious, coarse, forceful, aggressive. These are basically how men are when it comes to language. Here is an example of the difference theory. As you can see, we have two pictures, one on the left and one on the right. Now, in both of these pictures, the man is being more rational and the woman is being more emotional. Now, let me read these examples for you. The male is saying in the first picture, "You lost my dog?" And the female is saying, "It was an accident. I didn't mean to." As you can see, the man, he has no sort of emotion in his language. And as you can see, the woman is being emotional. She's saying it was an accident and she didn't mean to do it. Now for the second picture, the male is saying, "I can't believe you did this." And the female's response, "I already feel bad about it. Stop making me feel worse." Now, as you can see, she's feeling emotional. She doesn't want him to make her feel worse, right? But he's showing no sort of emotional in his language. He's just saying, "I can't believe you did this." Now we will be looking at the dominance theory. Men dominate and control both interactions with women and the language system itself. Women use language in a way which reflects their subordinate position in society, and men in a way which reflects their power. Differences in men and women's speech is due to men's dominance and women's subordination. Therefore, the language we use is more about power and status than gender. So this is what the dominance theory is basically about. The men are dominating. Here we have an example of the dominance theory. As you can see, there is a picture and a few men are sitting at the table along with one woman. Now the woman is saying, "I suggest that we should draw out a building plan." One of the men's response were, "That's an excellent suggestion, mistress. Perhaps one of the men here would like to make it." Now, because she's a woman, she cannot carry on with this plan. The men are telling her that one of the men should do it. One of them should carry on with it. So they're being dominant to her. They're on top and she's below. So yeah, they're on top, so they control that. And because she's a woman, she does not have the power to do so. And that's basically what the dominance theory is about. I will now hand you over to Miss Casey Charles, who will be doing language in use. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Casey Charles, and I will be discussing language in use. Language in use creatively brings together for the first time perspective from cognitive linguistics, language acquisition, discourse analysis, and linguistics anthropology. In addition to that, we can say it's a study of how language used in context and how it explores the way language is shaped to create meaningful interaction, thus addressing issues of language and creating social identity. For example, instead of us saying chairman, we can now say chairperson. Thank you.
Good morning, class. My name is Irene Perry, and today I will be presenting the concept language and sexism. The rise of feminist philosophy in the 19th century helped to redefine how we use language as it is related to gender. Because of the need to be more sensitive to the case presented by feminists and be respectful of general women's rights, there was a need to revise several male centered words and expressions. More specifically, language has been involved in constant changes towards gender neutral words and expressions. For instance, several years ago, we used to talk about air hostess, but now the correct word to say is flight attendant. So, because of this, several male centered terms must be modified to be more gender neutral. More importantly, being linguistically gender sensitive is not only limited to using gender neutral words, but includes showing respect for women through language in the old. In some cities or towns right here in Guyana, the slang that men would use to refer to sexual encounters with women is considered to be sexist. Men use words such as beat, mash, dig out, etc. to talk about their sexual experiences over women. We can conclude that generally sexism in language reflects bias against women. Next, let's talk about the relationship between gender, language, and sexism. Language is one of the most powerful means through which sexism and gender discrimination are perpetrated and reproduced. Gender is a type of script that society expects us to act out. Society tends to expect better behavior from women than men. The words used to refer to women places women in a subordinate group, while men are placed in a dominant group and expected to display traits of masculinity, which indulges toughness. Male domination has inserted into language many words or phrases, styles, and definitions that insult and undervalue females and treat them rather as despised. So, here's an example of language and sexism. The term pussy. Pussy is a kid's term for a cat, and a cat is characterized as weak and timid. In Guyana and most part of the Caribbean region and the rest of the world, the woman's private part is referred to as a pussy. Now, that same term that is used to refer to the woman's private part, it's used to insult another as being too weak or too scared.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alicia Handy, and today I'm placed with the task of giving you an example of the relationship between gender, language, and sexism. Men usually talk eloquently on competitive topics such as sports, while women talk about family life, individual, and emotion. Women tend to express themselves more. Women try to avoid using slangs and dirty words even when they're angry. Now, when we're referring to women in general, we say Miss. But if a woman is married, we say Mrs. When we're referring to men, we say Mr. Now, there are some general terms used to refer to both men and women. For example, doctor, judge, president. Now let's look at the sentences under grammar. It reads, a teacher should create a lesson plan for his lesson. If he does, he will be prepared and organized. Now in this sentence, the pronouns he and his are used. However, we know that these pronouns are referred to men, and they're not only male teachers. So the sentence should read, a teacher should create a lesson plan for his or her lessons. If he or she does, he or she will be prepared and organized. Gender inclusive language. Now society has grown, and as such, people tend to now use words to refer to both men and women. Here are some examples. Man, we say people. Mankind, Humanity. Chairman, persons now say chairperson. Policeman, we now say police officer. Fireman, we now say firefighter. Thank you.
In conclusion, gender does affect how language is used in society. Remember, as we discussed, gender basically is how society views you. So, based on that, men and women would use language differently in terms of what they say and how they say it. When it comes to language use and gender, women are dominated. If a man uses language in the way a woman should, he is oftentimes discriminated. While if a woman uses language in the way a man should, she is referred to as being a bully or out of place.